Hey, I'm Coach Jay. Welcome to Blue57 Scouting News. Today I'm joined with Lexus Ortiz in New York City. Good morning, Lexus. How are you doing?
Good morning, Coach Jay. I'm doing well. How are you doing today?
It's good. So, you guys got like a foot of snow in the last couple of days?
Yes, it's crazy over here.
It was in the low 40s here yesterday, but it's back up to the 60s today. So, I'm sure you guys know how to handle all that stuff. So this busy week, we had signing week this week, and busy week. Also, Gus Malzahn got fired on Sunday, and we had talked about that with Jack, one of our scouts down at Auburn, that the fan base was kind of done with him. They're ready to move on, but I wanted to kind of get your take on what happened.
This coach, he had I wouldn't say a great season. They finished, but they went 6-4 this season. It's not like the past coaches that we've seen where they had a big losing record and their wins were, not as high. I mean, he did have more wins than losses, but when you're at these elite teams, you cannot have those many losses. But something interesting that I found about like his whole firing process was that he signed a 7-year extension back in 2017. So that means that the school broke the contract, and the overall contract for him was 49 million. So can I get your perspective on that? What do you think about them breaking that?
Well, I think when he signed that contract, I think he had just played in the SEC championship game, and they thought they were back in the top ranks. I
Mhm.
think the finish number 3 and number 5 in the SEC West the last 2 years kind of did him in, because they got Alabama in their own conference, they got Georgia that they play every year, and when you're playing two competitors like that, you got to be in that elite group. They weren't. This recruiting class was nowhere close to the elite group that they've had in the past. So, and I think Auburn alumni got plenty of money. So they're like, hey, we'll just buy them out. We'll get another coach in here. And so, they'll buy those contracts out. This is the biggest one I've seen bought out so far. $21 million, a lot to buy out. So they basically bought out 3 years. But I just think that he needed to win. I think he needed to come in first or second this year, play good against Alabama, and it just didn't look like that kind of team. And I just think the boosters said enough is enough.
I agree. That's definitely what happened. And like you said, the community was affected, the fans, the coaches, coaching staff, and now your team is not winning. So you got to do something about it. And the boosters are like, well, it's time. We gave him enough time and he didn't produce anything.
Yeah, so I mean, he had been there. This was his 8th season, so he started out at a really high level, and it didn't help having Cam Newton on the team and some of those players they had. So it still goes back to the teams with the best players have the best coaches. So I think Nick Saban is an excellent coach, but he's really an excellent recruiter. And that's what it comes down to. That's why he continues to get the best players. Same thing with Dabo Swinney. When you get great players, it makes the coaches look better. So I know that Malzahn is a great coach. He is phenomenal. But the reality is he hadn't had the players to get them to that next level. And it really comes down. You got to get those players. You don't get them, you're not going to be at the top.
Exactly. That's key for performance on any team. And the fact that he couldn't get those players is just, it's difficult for him to produce great results as a coach.
Right, right. And some of these games come down to 2 plays, 3 plays. You got to make those three plays.
Exactly.
So I know we got some wrap up from Wednesday with National Signing Day. Grant's got some pretty big stuff in, I believe. So I'm going to let you guys talk about that.
Okay. Hey, Grant, how are you doing today?
Good. How are you, Lexus?
Doing well.
So today I have some more just stats on the Gus Malzahn firing, as well as just some overall updates from later on in the early signing day, as well as just some other like decommitments, commitments that we've seen since then. Um, so to go a little bit even deeper with the Malzahn firing, just some interesting stats I found. He had a 77-38 record with a 67% win percentage, and he was 2-5 in bowl games, as including an 0-2 record in New Year's Six bowls. So he was just not getting the job done on the big stage. We know that loss in the national championship to Florida State as well in his first season. So there was just a lot of not fulfilling expectations there for him. Some things I found interesting about just this season is that they began in as number 7 in the AP poll, but finishing 6-4 with the 4th most difficult strength of schedule. And out of those top 4 teams with the highest strength schedule, they were the only ones to finish with a winning record. So with compared to others like Kentucky, Arkansas, Mississippi State, Auburn was ranked 18th at the end of the season in FPI. So the overall record might seem a little misleading, but really Malzahn did outperform some of those expectations, maybe not early from the rankings, but he really didn't have an awful year. It was just more so the recruiting this year, just currently ranked, the class 2021 at 41st in the nation is pretty ridiculous for Auburn. His lowest recruiting ranking, according to 24/7 Sports, since he started coaching there, was 12th in the nation. So, and that's just kind of ridiculous with him or Auburn now being 12th in the SEC this season, only ahead of South Carolina and Vanderbilt. So really easy to be ahead of those schools when they've really just struggled with recruiting this season. So very interesting to see what will happen. There's plenty of good coaches that could fill that spot. So I'll go ahead and just jump right into some of these new commitments, even one decommitment.
I just wanted to comment.
Yeah.
Brought up the fact that he had a winning record compared to every other team, which is something that I try to bring up with Coach Jay. It's that it's a winning record compared to like these previous coaches that have been fired where they had a losing record, which we understand, right? But then it does go back to his overall record, like you said. It's not proving anything. You're not really getting the job done. Despite that he has great coach ethics, we don't take that away from him, but stats prove a lot.
Yeah, I completely agree. But something I did find just also interesting. So this was not one of these seasons, but he finished 5 of 8 seasons ahead of where he began in the AP poll at the start of the season. So he outperformed expectations in 5 of his 8 seasons at Auburn, but this was just not one of them. Obviously, his strength of schedule this year was a lot different, I mean, the SEC is loaded. You put Auburn in another conference like the Pac-12, they're probably going to make a run for Pac-12 championship. It's just really interesting to see just how much or how great of a leader, how great of a development that these players will receive in a school like Auburn under Malzahn. But I'm sure he's going to find a place at another school very soon. So yeah, and then for I just have one update for each conference, like usual, and for the SEC, I've got a Florida commitment from Jacksonville, Florida, from Trent Christian Academy with Austin Barber. He's a 3-star offensive tackle. Just played in one state championship the other day. That same day, he also received an offer from Florida. He's a former Minnesota commit. So just being able to flip to Florida in his home state. It's a big win for them, especially after losing an offensive tackle yesterday from a decommitment. So really interesting stuff there. One of the guys in my Jacksonville territory, so I'm pretty excited for him. Go Gators! I'm really happy about that. So that's big there. And then the ACC. I'm sure a lot of people have heard about this. The Miami commitment from Jake Garcia. That was one of the big commitments we were waiting for on Wednesday night with that 4-star quarterback, one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the class. Former USC commit. USC has already filled his place with Jackson Dart from Utah and another commitment as well in the quarterback class. So really interesting to see what Jake Garcia can bring to the U. I think he's got a lot of potential and can really help follow in what Derek King has done this season for Miami. And then Big Ten, talked a little bit about this on Wednesday with Maryland commitment from Brandon Jennings. He's a 4-star inside linebacker of Sandalwood High School in Jacksonville, Florida. I mean, he's the real deal. He's a great player, another Jacksonville guy. So just being able to flip from Michigan to Maryland, staying in the Big Ten, he is a great player. He was committed to 2 other places, but now he's officially signed to Maryland, so he's locked in. Really interested to see what that Maryland class can do. They've picked up a bunch of guys from Florida this year, so good for them. And yeah, so we'll see what happens going forward for them. And then Big 12, I've got a decommitment from Iowa State, Winsome Frazier, who's a 3-star safety out of Palm Beach Lakes High School in West Palm Beach, Florida. Just recently decommitted from Iowa State, so we're seeing a little bit more so projections towards Florida Atlantic. And so most likely he could be staying home. They have 75% chance of him going to Florida Atlantic and 25% going back to Iowa State, but a lack of Power 5 offers. He'll probably just be staying home and playing for a great team with Florida Atlantic. And then for the Pac-12, I have a Stanford commit from yesterday, S.A. Dubre he's a 3-star inside linebacker from McEachern High School in Powder Springs, Georgia. He is the top player on Stanford's commitment list to officially sign with Stanford. So great move by them to get a guy all the way from Georgia in the Pac-12. So big on them. And that's really the roundup I have since the other day. Just a lot of big moves going on.
Do you think, like, and obviously signing low, that's why we're seeing a lot of these decommits?
Yeah, I think you could see a lot of guys that are wondering where their skills would mostly fit at this point. I think with people, or especially like athletes, so with, say, Miami, for example, they really needed a quarterback. Jake Garcia is one of the top quarterbacks in the class. I think that with that need, it's more of a mutual fit to a certain point, is just where can I play early, where can I get reps in to really improve, whether it's draft stock or just wanting to enjoy the game and just play and just enjoy your college career as an athlete. So I think it's a mutual fit. As you see with guys like Brandon Jennings, who committed to other places, I'm sure he had a tough time really figuring out where he was going to go. But by the end of the day, you're going to have to make the best fit for you.
I agree.
So Grant, we are we're basically on the Blue 57 board. We're in the neighborhood of 75 to 80% of players for the 2021 class that had Power 5 offers. 80% of those kids have committed. 75 to 80%. So we're in that range. So there's still 20% of the kids for the 2021 class that have Power 5 offers that looks like they're going to sign in February, which I think is still a decent amount of players. So I think that the Alabamas and the Clemsons and the Floridas, they like to close it all out in December, but some of these other schools, they kind of have it round one, and then February brings in round two, so they'll be a little bit more targeted for some of the players. But a lot of these schools are still going to be signing players come February 3rd.
Yeah, so I think there's going to be a lot of movement, not necessarily from guys that we saw commit on signing day, but just the rest of the pack, whether it's those that are committed and haven't signed, or just those that are still open. I think we can see a few decommitments. We saw a few I know there's been a couple from LSU and Florida in the past 2 days. So kind of interesting to see what might happen there. They could go to a competitor or a school different conference that might best suit their needs, or might be looking for a new starter, someone young that can get some reps in. And there's a lot of factors to these things, so we'll just have to see what happens. And it's more so of a waiting game and just seeing something come up for us at this point.
Yeah. So coaches aren't supposed to talk to them, I think, until we get into January. So I think we're in dead period right now. So there's not supposed to be anything going back and forth. So then they reload again in January. So yeah, interesting stuff. I'm sure Miami's real excited about getting Jake, and that's a big get for them. So anyway, that's great stuff. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
So Lexus, it's we're gonna probably go back and look at some of the kids that decommitted, look at their personality profiles, see if we can find out anything that is consistent with these kids that both decommitted and also flipped, because we want to be able to recognize those personality profiles for future classes. But I can tell you, these kids that decommit at the very end and then go with somebody else, it brings a lot of drama in to the school that lost the player. And so, but we need to do a deep dive on some of those players and see if we can see anything within the personalities about, why they would decommit and why anybody would flip at the last minute. I got a feeling we're dealing with a lot of ego in some of the situations, and that's kind of what happens.
I think there's so many variables that play into the reason why they decommit, especially the times that we're in right now in a pandemic. It could have to do with it, but decommitting is not that uncommon. But it's just where you're going to get that playing time, where you feel is the best fit, what coach really has your best interest. And sometimes you don't realize that until you start playing all your cards out. And it sucks that it has to be at the last minute, and it may have a bad reflection on you, but you have to go with the best decision that's for you.
Yeah, it's true. And I guess when factors start changing, a lot of factors start changing at the end, you can get more of that decommit kind of stuff come through. If it was my child and he was out there, and some things changed with the coaching staff where they weren't calling him, they weren't, after he committed, they weren't showing the love, I would be like, hey, let's decommit. So, I'm not judging anybody. I think, like you said, everybody is different and different factors come into play. At the end of the day, the athlete's got to take care of his own interests as well as the school does. So, but I think we're going to try to look at some of those players, see if we can figure out any consistency there. So, anyway, what'd you say?
Definitely might find something that's common that a lot of outsiders don't see, because we dive deep into their personalities and their interest.
Yeah, for sure. So, this is good stuff. National Signing Day, early signing period's big one. That's a relatively new thing. I think we've only been doing that for 3 years now. So, I like the fact that the NCAA does it. It allows the bigger Power 5 schools to get most of their players in round one, and then they can kind of come back for round 2, as opposed to everybody doing it in February. This allows some of the elite players to get signed. Now the other players can kind of move up and be looked at by other coaches. So I think the NCAA did a good thing with that, and I think the day overall was pretty successful.
I agree. It definitely was successful, and this is something good that the NCAA is doing, like you said.
All right, we appreciate everything.
Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Blue57. Thank you, Coach Jay, for sitting in with us, as well as Grant. And don't forget to follow and like and subscribe.